passion or enthusiasm that you do, it can be rather hard coming together. A true leader with their vision can help people see the exciting possibilities when it comes to their future.
Leaders look forward to the future. They hold in their minds visions and ideas of what they can be. They have a sense of what is unique and possible if everyone works together. Leaders are positive about their future and they passionately believe people can make a difference. They breathe life into their visions and get people to see everything that can happen and get excited for what can come in the future.
The vision seen only by the leaders is sufficient to generating organized movement. They must help others to see the exciting future possibilities. Leaders breathe life into visions. They communicate hopes and dreams so that others can clearly share them as their own. They show others how their values and interests will be served by the long-term vision of the future.
This video is dedicated to a certain type of person that many of us may not consider a leader, despite all their hard work. This certain person has a unique responsibility 5 days a week, 9 months out of the year. I am, of course, talking about our teachers. In this video, we will be interviewing the teachers that have the greatest influence and impact on each and every one of us. This is for the teacher that made it possible for me to call myself a TAMU student.
This is for the ones who inspire vision within all of us.
This is for the people who never gave up on us.
This is for the ones who encourage us to reach a little bit higher every day.
So, what inspired you to become a teacher?
Primarily my mother. She was a high school graduate. She never went to college, took a couple of classes, but she was a lover of learning, and she became an estate archaeologist, self-taught, all of it self-taught, and her passion for learning is what drove me to continue learning as well, which meant teaching in English.
Well, I went through many different things. I have 4 degrees, so I wasn't inspired at first, I guess. I worked for a while at a trucking company. I worked here as a tutor, and then I really liked doing that. And I'd already had a master's degree, and I was working as a tutor. And I really liked doing that. And then developmental education came up. It went into Dr. Hickey's department, and she needed a teacher, so she asked me to do it. And that's when I started teaching.
Well, I moved to Laredo because I was working in a factory. My cousin owned a factory in Mexico. They needed help with the robots, the robotic system they had at the factory. I was crossing into Nuevo Laredo every day, and as I was here, I had been here for a few months, and I started attending a church, United Baptist Church. The pastor's name was Mike Herrera, and he was trying to convince me that I should become a preacher. And since I wasn't really convinced that I should be a preacher, I told him I wasn't really feeling like God was calling me to be a preacher at that moment. But he said, you know, I think you'd make a really good teacher. And he said, you know, I'm a little worried about you. I think since you know so much about engineering and computer science, maybe you should try to become a teacher. Since I was looking for a change, and I really enjoyed, I actually taught the Bible study at the church, and the kids really enjoyed it, and they would always, you know, I guess, compliment me to the pastor. And so he had encouraged me to become a teacher. And that's really, I would guess that would be the main motivation for me becoming a teacher. I guess I felt like it was God's will for me to become a teacher. The pay was a lot less than what I was making, but I enjoy it thoroughly.
When I was in middle school, I noticed that I had a very good talent in explaining the math homework for my friends and teammates. I decided later to become a teacher when I was pursuing a career. I had a talent in business, and I had a talent for math. I decided to stick to teaching because I like to help my community by giving back whatever I can do best, in this case, helping the students the best way I can by making math easy to understand, to bring the best of them, and by inspiring them the best way I can.
So, in what unique ways do you bring out the full potential in your students?
I don't necessarily try to bring it out of them. I try to open the door and let them discover it themselves. So hopefully I'm encouraging them to come forward by showing them how wonderful it can be to take a risk, to step out and find their own path.
I try to figure out what I guess each student needs individually, and if I see if they're struggling, I recommend tutoring or early alert or going to see their mentor or coming to my office hours. I try to become someone that they're not afraid to go to office hours. Really just try to get them to do their best, and I think the best way to do that is to know each student like on an individual basis.
Well, the ways that I bring potential out of my students. First and foremost, I will say that as much as I can, I use my classroom as a platform for life lessons, but I feel that I try to teach my students or convey the attitude to my students that their perception of what they could do with their lives is what their reality will reflect. I think a lot of people, they believe that they won't succeed, or they believe that, certain things are too hard or too difficult for them to do, and that keeps them from doing any of those things, and it's a huge motivational problem. So one of the first things I try to do with my students is motivate them by telling them all these crazy stories about my life and all these people that I had interacted with and all these opportunities I had, and in an attempt to motivate them to think that they could do really cool stuff, that they don't have to necessarily come from a certain place or certain family or whatever it might be, and that really their opportunity is based on what they perceive and how they believe, how much they believe there is an opportunity for them. So that is one of the major things that I try to instill in my students, is the sense that, the world is their oyster, and, it's that they have plenty of opportunity to do all the things that they would like to do.
In this profession, it's really easy to lose track what it's important. For me, my #1 priority is my students. I like to inspire them by bringing the best of them. I have high expectations all the time. I'm very strict when it comes to the work that needs to be done in the classroom, but I also sympathize with their needs, with their feelings, with their personal problems. I know that my students are the best, and they can do the best at whatever they set up their minds, and with my guidance and leadership, I know I can do that for them.
Is there a unique experience that you had that you'd like to share with us?
I've had several experiences where students fail to live up to my expectations in the classroom, and then I see them later and they come back and tell me how much they enjoyed it so much that they are becoming teachers themselves, that they're becoming English majors themselves. That happens periodically, but I'm thinking of one student in particular who over the past, was probably the most recent over the past 2 years, and who struggled in the class or didn't do everything the way they should, but guess what? English major and got to be a teacher.
I'm asking who that student is.
Gee, I can't think who. Maybe his first name was Diego?
I think I've heard of that.
I knew you would.
One of my students years ago wasn't really interested in engineering, and we do these electronics projects in my class using this microcontroller called the Basic Stamp, and he was kind of an artsy, creative guy. I think he wanted to be an actor at first or something like that, and he had done the Basic Stamp project, and it had motivated him so much to become an electrical engineer that he majored in electrical engineering in college. I think he went to UT or A&M, and then he eventually got his PhD. From my understanding, he's in the PhD program, or he already got his PhD as an electrical or a computer engineer, all because of this experience with this project that he did in my class. And to this day, I stay in contact with him. He said that that particular project totally inspired him to become an engineer. So I think that's really interesting.
A few years back, I was assigned to teach a tax class for the students that hadn't passed the standardized test. It happened to be one of the best experiences that I had as a teacher because those students needed a lot of my help. I put all the effort and all the energy that I had to make them successful. At the end, most of them accomplished their goal. What's so unique about this story, maybe not for everybody, but at least for me, is that a few years after those students graduated, I had a student that came back to me and said, I will always remember you because you made a difference in my life. I had never passed this test since I was in 3rd grade, and with your help, I was able to do what I needed to do to be able to get my graduation diploma. That is something that I'm going to take for life, and I will always remember that particular class.
After interviewing our teachers, we all decided that we want to give back to the teaching community in some way. Fortunately for us, Mr. Pilton gave us the opportunity to speak in front of his entire class about our college life. Not only were we eager to answer all the questions the students had, but we were amazed by how many questions there were. What made it unique was that these students had the chance to ask real college students of what real college life was like. What trials would they face? What experiences would they have? In each answer we gave, we kept the focus on the idea that all things are possible if they not only brought themselves up to the challenge, but they also brought others together in a shared vision.
Inspired shared vision. Our inspiring shared vision. Let's say I want to make a radiology business here. If someone has a medical thing that they want to come into, I can inspire you to come with me so I can teach you what I know. And my teacher, she came here, that inspired me was Miss Peña. She's an algebra teacher. She also helped out with dual enrollment in college classes. She inspired me very much. She kept pushing me, and so I can do what I do best. It's not a group. Everyone has a group here. Like everyone has their little groups. Like everyone like in lunch, it's like, okay, I go this way. Okay, well it's like that. But imagine your group, everyone becoming a leader and being able to go to every other group and making everyone a leader. Instead of having people follow you, have people walking beside you. Because you're not there to follow, you're not there to lead. You're there to walk beside.
Now that brings our presentation to a close, but before we go, the students had one last thing to say. 1, 2, 3.
Hi,